Hello, my dear friends and fellow developers. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to start a brand new series, also known as Lighting Web Component for Beginner series. So in this series, we will discuss different topics related to our LWC framework. And in this series, we are trying to discover new concepts, or you can say new utilities, which has been released in a regular basis by our Salesforce community. So, in this series, we are going to try and find out the best possible ways how by which we can implement our LWC projects. So, let's see and let's begin our journey. So, today is our first session, and today's session we will begin with the most commonly but useful topic named as data binding. So, what is data binding? So, basically, data binding is a concept by the help of which we are coupling our JS file and HTML template together, so that if any changes happens at JS side, so in HTML can render it and update the changes in a go. So let's see what we have in data binding. So basically, it is used to bind a property in a component templates to a property in a component's JavaScript class. As I mentioned, that it is used to binding the JS and HTML file. The major thing which we should notice is like this is the syntax, which is the property. So the variable or the property which we are going to bind, that has to be enclosed in a curly braces. So this is the syntax. And in this screen, you can see a normal code snippet. So on the left hand side, you can see we have HTML template named as hello name in curly braces and the announcement. And in JS file, we have given the acronym as @API name world and @API announcement as I am coding web component. So when we will load this LWC in our Chrome browser or any of the web browser, so what it will do the binding because we have given the syntax, proper syntax, which is curly braces, and then we have name and announcement. So it will bind the both HTML and JS file, and this is how the output will look like hello world, and I am coding web component. So in runtime, this name will be replaced by the property value which we have given, which is world in case of name, and in case of announcement, it will replace announcement with I am coding web development. So in real time, when the LWC will render in our web browser, this is how it will look like. So now let's see what are some key points which we should consider or which we should keep in or note to ourselves whenever we are working with bindings. So the first thing is like the property in curly braces must be a valid JavaScript identifier or member expression. For example, data and data name are both valid. So whatever property we are going to specify inside this curly braces, that has to be a valid JavaScript identifier or member expression. Second thing is like we cannot add any spaces around the property. For example, as you can see in first point, this is a valid identifier, which is data. But if you add a space, then it will be like invalid identifier because it is not a valid HTML. So we should keep into note that we should not add any space between the curly braces and the property name. The third point says that it is illegal to compute a value in an expression. That means it can take any primitive or any member expression value. It will not compute any value like data2 dot name John. So it will not do this computation. For this, we have to use getters. And don't worry, we will cover this topic in our next videos, that what is getter and what is setter and how to implement that in our LWC framework and how we can do so for the computation purpose. The most important thing which you might have observed in the previous slide, that added API. So basically, this is one of the decorator of our LWC framework, which is used to expose the property. So we have decorated our name with added API. That means the property is public, so that any other component who has access to this LWC can access to this name, and it can modify this name value if the need basis. So these are some of the key points which needs to be noted down or which needs to be known by any LWC developer whenever they are doing binding between our JavaScript and HTML file. So now let's move one step further and see how we can perform the handle user input. So this is one step ahead. So now what we are doing, we are taking the name as world and we are binding it with our HTML file. But here we have one more component named as input component, in which we are taking the handle input. So now what it will do, when the page will render, it will have this first screenshot with name as world, because we have defined the by default value is world, which will get mapped over here. But let's suppose if we add any value like promote, like I have added over here. So what it will do, here we have on input event, which is cached by handle input. So whenever we finish typing in Pramod, so it will go to this JS function, which is handle input, and it will get this name, that Pramod. And then what it will do, it will rename this world with the input. So that's why it is in runtime, it is changing the value. So if we change with some other sentence like XYZ, so it will also hello XYZ. So this is pretty much about the today's session in which we have discussed what is data binding and how we can achieve in our Salesforce platform.